Shalom. This is Hadassah Batsai 1 returning with the book of Revelation, and we're still in chapter 20, and this is part 7, and we're looking at the war of Gog and Magog, and this is the conclusion of this particular study. We still have a part 8, which will conclude chapter 20. So let's get started. We will now look at another prophecy from Yahazakaal concerning the war of Gog and Magog. In the previous studies, we discovered who and what Gog is, or will be, rather, and also about Magog. But now we will focus our attention on the utter destruction of Gog and Magog and how long it will take to clean up after this war. So in the previous studies, we look at the identification of who Gog and Magog will be. And we know this is all pointing to the very end of time. This will be the very last war that this earth will ever see. And this war is going to be the most destructive war that this earth will ever see. Because Allah Hayam Yahweh, He is going to be fighting in this war. When talking about Him exacting His vengeance on these creatures, on these wicked entities, either of the earthly component, meaning the people possessed with unclean spirits, and of course, Gadriel, the last Satan. This will give us the magnitude of their destruction and how immense this army will be. There's so much more to understand about this war, about this last war that this earth will ever see. Hence the reason why Allah Hayam gave us such detailed prophecies concerning it. Allah Hayam wants us to know that He will devastate Gog and Magog forever. So we have 2 chapters giving us the account of the judgments that will be coming against Gog and Magog. And that is found, those 2 prophecies are found in Yahazakaal chapter 38 and chapter 39. But as we continue studying, we will come to a conclusion that even though Allah Hayam has not named Gog and Magog in His end time judgments, we see that He named other names, and we're going to come across that later on, which point in the same direction as Magog. We'll see that in a bit. So let's look at Yahazakaal chapter 39 verse 1. Therefore, you son of man, prophesy against Gog and say, Thus said Yahweh Allah Hayam, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And it feels as if we're repeating the same sentence because we've seen this in Yahazakaal chapter 38, verse 1. So Allah Hayam, He is not repeating Himself because He has forgotten that He has said this before. He is repeating Himself because it is showing how his fury has come up before Him against Gog and Magog. In fact, against the entities that have come against His people. You see, the Satans and the fallen angels and the unclean spirits have devised a plan. And they have devised this plan from the dawn of time, how they're going to use other people, other nations, to try to wipe out the people of Allah Hayam. We're going to see all of this later on. It's all going to come up to the surface. Why Allah Hayam Yahweh has spoken judgment twice. He repeated Himself twice. We know this thing is certain. All right? Yahazakaal is given a second prophecy of judgment set against Gog. And we come to know that Gog, who is Gadriel, is the chief prince over the Meshech and Tubal, who were the descendants of Japheth, who are the Europeans and the Asians. So when it all comes down now to the nitty-gritty, we're going to discover it is less about the names and it's more about about their progenitors. There were only three sons of Noach. That's Shem, Japheth, and Ham. Shem is the son who was the progenitor that leads to the 12 tribes of Yashraal. You're going to discover something else about him too later on. Well, about his offspring later on. But the other sons of Noach, who is Japheth and Ham, you're going to find that these two particular sons have always been our enemies, the enemies of the Shamites, the true offspring of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. You're going to discover some serious things here. All right? So when you see Al-Hayam is calling on these names, the names that once represented either a descendant or a nation, we cannot look at the names and say, well, it means that it is speaking about Russia or is speaking about another country. No, we have to look deeper. And when we look deeper, we're going to discover it comes up to just two names. Because all these descendants of Japheth, all these descendants that Al-Hayam calls on, they all point to one son, Japheth, talking about the Europeans and the Asians. And all the Africans that he calls out points to Ham. They all point to Ham. So at the end of it all, there are two sons of Noach that become the focus of Al-Hayam, because they're the ones who spawn all these enemies of ours and him, of Al-Hayam. We're going to see something very soon. Let's go on. And although this devil called Gadriel, who is Gog, is their prince, not all of the lineage of Japheth will submit to him, but a remnant will submit to Al-Hayam. Al-Hayam did say, and we looked at this in the previous study, that even those of Azazel, and we kind of spoke about that, but we're going to go along with it for now, they will be included in his house. Right? I'm paraphrasing. Meaning that those of the Gentiles he's going to bring in to be his people. Because these will be the ones that will cast away all the gods of their forefathers, and they will come to him and worship only him. They will show their loyalty to him and their faithfulness to him. And these are the ones that he is going to preserve to be his people and to give them a portion of our inheritance and even our name. Okay, let's read on. So these are the ones that will be the remnant. Meshech and Tubal are not the only people over whom Gog will be ruling. They will also be the descendants of Ham, which we looked at in a previous study. Al-Hayam has once again, through this prophet, said that he is against Gog, who is Gadriel. And we know Gog, the earthly component, will be the leaders of Gadriel that will help to bring his armies together. This great army together. So Gog, the two components, Gadriel, the evil spirit, and the leaders, the captains, the princes, the chiefs, whatever you want to call them, but the leaders of his army. Alahayam has spoken twice, which means that this judgment of utter destruction for this devil and his wicked followers will certainly come to pass. It is a certain thing when he speaks twice. Let's look at verse 2 of Yahazakaal chapter 39. And I will turn you back and leave but the sixth part of you, and will cause you to come up from the north parts, and will bring you upon the mountains of Yashraal. And we looked at this in the previous study as well, when he said, I will leave but the sixth part of you. Doesn't sound, it sounds as if he left them there. No, they did not want to ride out with the army because they don't want a part of this army. So we have to be very careful when we are reading the scriptures. Remember, our Bible has been translated in many different languages, many different times, written, passed through many different hands. And yes, they have changed the names of our people in the book. And they've even changed the name of our Messiah, Hamashiach. They've changed the name of Alahayam, Yahweh. They've changed names and places, but they could not change all of the information. And what they could not change is sufficient for us to put the pieces together if we rely on Ruach HaKadosh to give us revelation, because he will fill in the gaps. Hamashiach said that to his disciples, that when he was leaving, actually, that he was going to send the Comforter to them, not only to them, but to all those who will follow him, meaning us today. And Ruach HaKadosh is the one person who can bring revelation about the word of Alahayam, which is written in parables and in prophecies, creating mysteries that we cannot, with our finite mind, understand unless he gives us the revelation as well as the understanding. All right? Because you can speak revelation to a person, but they're not going to get it. How many times Hamashiach explained the parables to his disciples, and how many times they did not get it? And he said, oh, you of little faith. So we need not only to get the revelation, but we need to get the understanding. And those two requirements will come from Ruach HaKadosh. And that's why we're not to be worried that they changed our book. They did it to try to keep us in the dark about who we are as a people and where we actually came from. To keep us ignorant of the truth. Now we can go one step deeper and say they did it also to keep us in pagan worship. So that we will always be worshiping darkness, worshiping in the darkness, and worshiping darkness, which we know are the Satans and the fallen angels, instead of being in his marvelous light. Because once we turn our attention to Alahayam and worship him, then his light, it floods us. And the darkness can't come near. And Satan knows that once that light comes upon us and it's exuding from inside of us, then he has lost his control over us. He has lost his power over us. And then we become a problem to him. So we can look at everything that's going on in the world right now and bring it down to the very basics. Yes, you hear about wars and rumors of wars in all different countries and threats being made and all these different things that are happening. Why are these things happening? They are happening because the Satans know that their time is running out. And they have limited amount of time to do their worst. And on top of that, they know that they have a limited amount of time to try to destroy the true people of Alahayam, who are the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. Well, they can't figure out the northern kingdom just yet, but they know the southern kingdom, they've been awakened. So now they're doing their due diligence. They're doing their best to try to submerge us again in the darkness because we're rising to the surface and we're shaking off all the darkness that have been piled upon us over the generations. You know, one time I heard a story about a man who dug a deep hole because he wanted to bury a donkey. Right? This is not a true story. This is just a story. So he dug this deep hole, put the donkey in it, and he started shoveling the dirt to cover the donkey. Every time he shoveled the dirt on top of the donkey will just shake it off and step up. Shake it off and step up. Until that hole was filled up and that donkey was standing above ground once again. And this is why Alahayam allows the enemy to come against us, because Alahayam, it wants to teach us how to shake it off and step up. The only way that we are going to be promoted to the position that he has waiting for us is by going through the persecutions and the tribulations that the Satans, the fallen angels, the unclean spirits come against us with. So he teaches us how to shake it off and move up. Step up. Everything that you see going on in this world, we are the focus. But they're going to lead you to think that it's another people, it's another race, it's another story, it's another narrative. And they have all these different agendas going on out there. But unless you have eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart to understand, to perceive, you're not going to understand that you are the focus of all these evils that are going on in this world if you are of the southern kingdom. Once you get that, then you realize, hey, all these things that they're pushing out there, I need to take my eyes off of them and I need to focus on Alahayam. Otherwise, fear can creep in. And once fear creeps in, you're going to lose your faith. You're going to start doubting. And you're going to start trying to preserve yourself, preserve your family, preserve your income, preserve everything that you own. When Alahayam saying, I'm getting ready to collect you. You don't need to save anything. You don't need to preserve anything. You just need to keep in the straight and narrow way. And I will do the rest. Just keep worshiping me and focus all of your attention on me. Yes, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of what's going on so that you will know the season that you're in. All right? Alahayam knows. So they can do whatever they want to do, but this is what he has given them to do because they know their time is running short and they're destined for the lake of fire. But in the meanwhile, Alahayam is using them to sift us, they're going to sift the northern kingdom, and they're going to sift the Gentiles. Because at the end of it all, the wicked, they're going to go into the lake of fire, but those who persevere to worship him and him alone will become his people, and they will receive eternal life with him. All right? Okay. So let's move on here. Let's read verse 2 again of Yahazakaal chapter 39, verse 1. And I will turn you back and leave but the sixth part of you, and will cause you to come up from the north parts, and will bring you upon the mountains of Yashrael. Now we're getting into more details of this war. So you see, the second chapter gives you a little bit more information, even though it may repeat some of the information. It gives you a little bit more information. So when you put all the pieces together, then you have the full picture. All right. We saw in the last study how Allah Hayam will cause Gog and Magog to be defeated by his plagues, by causing them to war against each other. And now we will see the result of their defeat. Allah Hayam will call them up from the north parts. We had discussed before how Yashra'al will at this time be the central province of the earth, with two north parts and two south parts on either side of Yashra'al, which are also called quarters. The Gentile inhabitants will occupy these four quarters, and it will be from there where they will. Let me read that again. And it will be there where they will multiply for 1,000 years. So don't forget, the earth is one landmass. Yashra'al is going to be in the center, and in the center of Yashra'al will be Yarowashalam. That's where the 12 tribes are going to live. On both sides of Yashra'al, you're going to have land that's going to be divided in half. The top half is going to be the north part. The lower part is going to be the south part, and that is going to be on both sides of Yashra'al. So there'll be two north parts and two south parts, and it will be there that the Gentiles will be dwelling. All right. Yes, they will be able to pass through the land to go from one side to another, but for now, Allah Hayam will not have them living in our land. They will be living in the quarters. It's going to be big enough to hold all these people. The earth is a lot bigger than we think. We've been lied to about the size of the land that we call earth. We've been lied to. Anyways, let's move on. We have already discussed the significance of the sixth part, which will be the remnant of the Gentiles who will not go up to war against Yashra'al. They have decided that they are going to worship Allah Hayam. They will have nothing to do with the other 5/6, that because if it's a sixth part, that means there are 5/6 that's left over, and that 5/6 will be the majority of the Gentiles that will become that Allah Hayam is calling Magog. All right. These will be the righteous ones, which Allah Hayam will choose to have a portion of our inheritance and to be his people. So when he say he left them, that means those were the ones that remained in their land because of their faithfulness to him and to his people. We have discussed that these will be the remnant of the Gentiles that will be living in their own villages, maintaining their ancestral nationalities and their history. The history of what their forefathers went through all the judgments on the earth. We're not talking about ancestral history as far as, if they're from China, the Chinese dynasties and stuff. No, we're talking about the history of the world, their history that they saw the judgments, they went through the judgments, and they made it true. They made it through. Sorry. They made it through the judgments because of their faithfulness to Allah Hayam. So they're going to pass this information along. That's what people do in cultures, don't they? That's how cultures are maintained, because it's passed from parent to child. And then that child grows up and becomes a parent, and they pass the same information down to their children, and so on and so forth. So in this case, we have those that preserve their own ancestral nationalities by marrying only their own kind. They will also maintain their history and at the same time maintain their worship of Allah Hayam. These will be the ones that will also maintain their worship of Allah Hayam according to their forefathers' instructions. If Allah Hayam will leave a sixth of the Gentiles in their land, then it means that the greater majority, the 5/6, will be the ones who will make up the great army of Gadriel called Magog. Now, yet there will also be a few of their evil people left behind to man their forts, located throughout the four quarters and along the coast. So they're not going to bring every single person out and leave their properties unattended. Obviously, they're not going to bring their wives and their children. I believe by this time, people will be fully grown because they will be a cutoff point of time where there'll be no more procreating. So technically, there won't be any children. Children, we all grown up, but yet they might be too young to go to war, right? So they're going to keep some people there, the elderly, the the women, those that are ailing, they're going to keep them there in the land. So they're going to need some people, strong men, to help look after their properties, look after their wives, look after, you know, to make sure that they don't get invaded, right? Because if they have that mindset to go and invade, try to invade Yashraal, Yarawashalam, then they're going to have that mindset that we need to protect our own while we're gone. Now, another thing that we have to understand is that the Gentiles will still have their sin nature even up to this point of time. Therefore, they will live and they will die when they reach old age or because of sickness or what have you, because they're still mortals. And it is for this reason why the forefathers will leave instructions, whether it's written or verbal, but they will leave instructions to help their offspring to continue along the path that they were on, to preserve their lineage, to preserve their own children, to preserve their descendants. They're going to experience deaths like we see death today. Children are born, they grow up, and they die. However, the 12 tribes of Yashraal will not see death because they have been made immortal. They have no sin nature. Since they were regathered, that sin nature was removed out of them. And they were given the fruit from the tree of life, so now they are immortal. So the generation that saw the judgments will still be alive. And we will continue living forevermore. So that's the difference between Yashraal and the Gentiles. We are the immortals. We will be the immortals at this point of time, and they will be the mortals until after this war. Then Al Hayam, the 1/6 that he preserves, that he will preserve, they too will become like we are. All right? So there be a few of their evil people left behind to man their forts located throughout the four quarters and along the coast. So the coast, you're going to find they use another word called isles. And isles, in your mind, you might think they're talking about islands, but we have no more islands at this point of time. The isles are the coastline. All right? This great army will gather themselves together in the north parts on the east and west sides of Yashraal. it will be from there that Allah Hayam will lower them into the mountains of Yashraal, where He will destroy them forever. He will destroy them there. Let's look now at verse 3 of Yahazakaal chapter 39. And I will smite your bow out of your left hand, and will cause your arrows to fall out of your right hand. You shall fall upon the mountains of Yashraal, you and all your bands, and the people that is with you. I will give you unto the ravenous birds of every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured. You shall fall upon the open field, for I have spoken it, said Yahweh Alahayam. So that open field is the valley. Not only will these wicked people fall in the mountains, and as there will be so many, as they're fighting each other and being plagued with hailstones and diseases, they will find themselves fleeing and falling in the open field, which is the valleys as well. So they're on horses or mules or what have you. They're on their mounts and they're fighting each other. And they're riding as they're fighting each other. So they're going to be spread out. And because they're all spread out. Because the whole intention was for them to ride from the north parts to the northern part of Yashraal to come down to surround Yarawashalam. But they never got to that part. They never got there. They never got anywhere near Yarawashalam because Alahayam, as they're in the mountains, He's going to destroy them there. And we know mountains have low places called valleys, and some valleys can look like an open field. All right? Alahayam will cause their arms to become weak so that they wouldn't be able to hold their bows and their arrows. So the bows and arrows, they travel. He doesn't want that. He wants them to cut each other up with swords because He wants them to bleed. All right? The only weapon that they will have left to fight with will be their swords. Here is the destruction that they will see, which we had looked at in the previous study. So this is taken from Yahazakaal, chapter 38, verse 21. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, said Yahweh Alahayam. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. So He's causing them to war against each other. Now, they had the intentions to come and war against His people. But he will put it in their hearts and in their minds to hate one another, to destroy one another. And Alahayam, He has done this times and times before. All right? He caused the 10 kings and their armies to destroy the whore Babylon with fire, pillage her. Right? That's what He does. He will cause their swords to break out against each other. Now remember that these people will be possessed by unclean spirits and even fallen angels, what have you. They'll be possessed. And Alahayam and this will ensure that these people will definitely do what He wants them to do, which is to destroy each other. This is where the thought is going to come in their minds that they can't even change their hearts or change their mind and say, I'm going back home. Because now they are driven with madness because of these unclean spirits that Alahayam is going to use to drive them to madness, to continue on killing one another. We've seen this in the previous study as well. When He released Mastema after His people left Goshen, Mastema means hatred. And this is what these Satans and these unclean spirits and these fallen angels are. They're hatred. The only thing that unites them together is a plan to try to destroy the people of Alahayam. But truly, these people, they are the epitome of hatred. There's no love in any of them. And their joy is to destroy. So when you remove the common denominator from them, guess what? They're going to turn against each other. All right? There are no real alliances except the plan to do the plan to destroy the people of Alahayam. That is their common goal, and that's the only thing that unites them. Put that aside, there is only hatred left. Hatred for each other. And they're going to use that hatred to try to destroy the flesh that they're possessed in. The hosts that carry them. Because the hosts are just as wicked as the demons and devils that possess them. And this is why their swords are going to turn against each other. Verse 22. And I will plead against him with pestilence. When he said plead, he's not talking about begging. He's talking about bringing judgment. That pleading there means judgment. I'm going to bring judgment against him. And him there, he's speaking, although this is a singular pronoun, we're talking about all the people together. He's bringing judgment against them with pestilence and with blood. Pestilence, diseases, blood, whatever diseases that he sends them is going to cause them to bleed, along with the slicing and dicing from the swords, the sword fight. And I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him, and overflowing with rain. You think this rain is a dew or a mist? He's sending down the rain like bullets. The raindrops are going to hit them like bullets. We're talking about torrential rain. It's washing them away while they're still killing one another. And then and along with the bleeding, they're bleeding. How about the great hailstones the size of basketballs coming down on top of their heads? And then if you think it stops there, no, he continues on with fire and brimstone. So while it's raining, there's fire breaking out. Hailstones coming down. And they're bleeding from diseases as well as from their injuries. This is total annihilation here. Total destruction. After their destruction, what Alahayam also did to this great army, he had already done with another Satan and his army in a previous war, known as the War of Armageddon. Alahayam will call for the ravenous birds of prey, the carrion birds. But in this case, he's going to call also the beasts of the field to come and devour the flesh and drink their blood. Can't forget that. Of the heathens and their animals. Alahayam will not allow their flesh to rot in his land. No, he will not. That's why he's bringing out the carrion birds and the beasts of the field. He doesn't want to leave their blood there. He doesn't want, and that's why he has the rain too, to help wash away some of that blood. And he has the carrion birds to help eat the flesh off their bones. But there's a second reason, and the most important reason why he's going to do this. We're going to see that coming up. Okay? Only their bones will be left to be buried. Later on in this chapter, we will see that Allah Hayam will call for the buriers to bury these bones. Let's look at Revelation chapter 19. We're reflecting. We did this chapter previously, and this is verse 17. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great Allah Hayam. So this will be the war of Armageddon. The war of Armageddon that we fought in the valley of decision. And this is the war that Hamashiach will take down 3 of the Satans and destroy the armies with the sword in his mouth. So here again, Allah Hayam is calling the fowls, the carrion birds, to come and eat the flesh, the molten flesh of the bones of these people. Okay, let's read on. Verse 18. That you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sat on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. Let's move down to verse 21 of the same chapter. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, whose sword proceeded out of his mouth, and that is Hamashiach. And all the fowls were filled with their flesh. And this will happen at the second return of Hamashiach on the earth, when he comes as king to rule the earth. Okay, let's look at verse 6 of Yahazaka'al chapter 39. And I will send a fire on Magog, and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles, and they shall know that I am Yahweh. Allah Hayam will send his fire to destroy Magog, who we know to be the army of Gadriel. But this fire is also a spiritual fire to also destroy this principality forever. So we know Magog, the earthly component, will be the army of Gog, the army of Gadriel, and the spiritual component will be the principality that rules, that Satan will rule through to bring these people together to do this thing that he wants to do, which is to try to destroy once and for all, for the last time, the people of Yashrael. So the principality is called by the same name, which is Magog, because we know Gadriel is spiritual, so he has to have the spiritual realm in which he rules in order to rule over the earthly component. So Magog, the earthly component, and the spiritual component or the principality, also called Magog, will be destroyed by fire. Everything now is going to be destroyed by fire. And this fire is both physical and spiritual. So Gadriel will be cast into the lake of fire at this point of time. Allah Hayam is destroying all evil, the earthly agents, the spiritual realm, and of course the Satan, Gadriel. This fire will purge out all that is evil once and for all, and this will include even the wicked ones that remained in their lands, manning their forts. So if they thought that they're going to be safe away from the war, the fire is going to find them no matter where they are, no matter where they've hid themselves. But it will not touch the righteous Gentiles. These ones will be feeling safe along the coast, which are the isles of their lands, because they will not be partaking in this war. Yet, they're still part of Gadriel's army. At this point of time, there will be only 2 types of Gentiles. Either they are worshippers of Allah Hayam, and serving him and his people, or they are worshippers of Gadriel and serving him. Regardless of whether these ones went to war with the multitude, they are still Gadriel's servants. Therefore, they will perish right along with their other comrades, but with fire. So their comrades, they had the hailstones falling upon them, the torrential rain, the fire and brimstone, along with the pestilence and the blood and the sword fighting. These ones are just going to be burned alive. They're going to be burned with fire. So let's look now at Psalm 33, verse 12. Blessed is the nation whose Elohim is Yahweh, and the people whom he has chosen for his own inheritance. Yahweh looks down from heaven. He beholds all the sons of men. From the place of his habitation, he looks upon all the inhabitants of the earth. He fashions their hearts alike. He considers all their works. And when he says works here, not just the works of their hands, but their worship. Who are they worshiping? Are they worshiping pagan gods, or are they worshiping me? Elohim records everything that we do and we fail to do if we are disobedient to him. All that we say and all that we don't say that we're supposed to speak, because he has given us an instruction to speak it. He records everything in his books. That's why when we get to the portion of the scriptures and in the last part of this particular chapter, chapter 20, he brings out his books and the book of life, because all of our deeds and misdeeds are written down in his books. All right? So nothing misses him. Verse 16, there is no king saved by the multitude of a host. A mighty man is not delivered by much strength. Now, when you stand before Elohim, your strength, even though you may have a multitude upon multitudes upon multitudes of people, Elohim can just breathe upon these people and they're done. The Satans, even though they may prove themselves more powerful than us because they're spirits and they were once angels, they're still collectively are not a problem to Elohim, because he made them, he created them before they became fallen, and he can destroy them, and he will. So not even them, along with their multitudes, are a problem to Elohim. When we go through these judgments, we see that Elohim, what does he do? Does he lift a finger to do anything? No. He sends the same evil spirits to fight against one another. And if they have possessed the body, then the bodies fight against each other. And now Elohim says, enough is enough. Now I'm going to destroy evil once and for all. And he created, by the time of the whore of Babylon being destroyed, he created the lake of fire. That entity was the first, that Satan was the first Satan to be cast into the lake of fire, along with his fleshly components, the agents, the fleshly agents, earthly component, the fleshly agents. And since that time, every time a Satan is defeated, he is cast into the lake of fire, until we only have one Satan left, which is Gadriel. And we still have the fallen angels, and we still have the Nephilim spirits. So this is the point of time then Elohim is going to wipe them off the face of the earth. and out of the spiritual realm where they dwell and cast them into the lake of fire. And that's why he's sending fire to destroy. Verse 17. A horse is a vain thing for safety, neither shall he deliver any by his great strength. Behold, the eye of Yahweh is upon them that fear him, upon them that hope in his mercy, to deliver their soul from death and keep them alive in famine. And this is our only hope. He is our only hope. Without him, we will be made desolate. And we might think that in the past, we've seen how Allah Hayam will break out against our people when they were disobedient. And because we have not seen a magnificent move of Allah Hayam, somehow, in the minds of some of our people, they think that he's either sleeping or he's weak. That they can carry on doing whatever they want to do, and it's going to be okay with them. But what they don't realize is that he is recording everything that they're doing. And he is not bringing conviction or condemnation. He's allowing them to do their worst because he's done with them. All right? He's done. The only time this earth is going to see him bringing these magnificent judgments where they see with their own eyes that it cannot be a person or persons bringing this about, but it has to be the hand of Allah Hayam, is when you start to see the 3 days of darkness come. When you see the 3 days of darkness come, people are going to start mourning, because that's when he is going to move. Because right after that will be his son appearing in the clouds. No, they might try to say to you that the things that you saw were holograms. And some people might even buy it. Or they might even try to say, oh, those were aliens that took these people away. Even though they saw that it wasn't a spaceship that came, but chariots. Because the whole world, they're going to see the chariots when they come. And that's why you see the narrative today that was once denied back in the 80s, the 70s, and the 80s, when people had sightings of these flying saucers and what have you. It was denied. And now suddenly, the same people that were denying it, they're saying that they exist. Now, if you are in the know, and if you are being taught by Ruach HaKadosh, if he is the one who's bringing revelation to you, you will know that these people are setting a stage for something great that is about to happen. They're already planning a narrative to explain a phenomenon that is about to happen. I know the rapture hopefuls are saying, oh yes, when we are raptured up, they're going to say it's the aliens that took us, the flying saucers that took us. But that's not even the truth, because there's no such thing as a rapture. Right? Allah Hayam is getting ready to regather his southern kingdom. And when he does, This is the narrative that they're going to use. They're going to use holograms. They're going to say it's a hologram. It's not real. And all these different technical things they're going to come up with. All these so-called explanations. And it will be the ideal time, because the earth is going to be in such an uproar after all of this is happening, because it's not going to be a silent, well, let me rephrase that, because the darkness is going to bring complete silence like you've never known before. But after it is gone, then the world is going to be in uproar, because you're going to have to deal with all kinds of miseries. We discussed that in a study that I did called The 3 Days of Darkness. And because the world now is in such an uproar, this will be the ideal time for the anti-Messiah to rise up, and the beast empire. The beast empire first, and then the anti-Messiah. All right? And they're going to try to set the record straight by bringing their narratives. Anyway, that's going into another study. So let's look at verse 7 of Yahazakael chapter 39. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people, Yashraal, and I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. I have that highlighted for a reason, because it sounds as if we will have the potential to pollute his name, when in fact we don't have a sin nature. We're already given our inheritance. We're dwelling with him for all eternity, starting from the time we are regathered. So it is not even possible for us to pollute his holy name anymore. That's why I'm saying, when you read these verses, we have to call on Ruach HaKodesh to help us to understand, because these words were translated, and sometimes the translation is misleading. But if Ruach HaKodesh comes to bring revelation to help you to understand, then you will not be misled. I'll explain it in a minute. And the heathens shall know that I am Yahweh, the Holy One in Yashraal. Behold, it is come, and it is done, said Yahweh Alahayam. This is the day whereof I have spoken. And we're going to focus on that last sentence there. This is the day whereof I have spoken. This last war with Gog and Magog will be a terrible and horrific war, because of the great multitude of people that will be riding out with Gadriel. They will be coming with one thing on their minds: to destroy the people of Yashraal and to pillage their cities. But Alahayam will use this final war to make his name renowned, famous, and even celebrated. For the 12 tribes of Yashraal will see with their eyes once more, once again, the destruction of this great multitude. Yashraal will be, without a doubt, be singing praises to Alahayam, and even the remnant of the Gentiles that will be left will be singing his praises as well. Now remember, we saw the regathered ones of the 12 tribes. We saw the war of Armageddon. All right? We witnessed the war of Armageddon. We were there with Hamashiach in the Valley of Decision. Since that time, after 1,000 years of living in peace and prosperity, not seeing any wars on the earth, the children that will be born on the earth, who will be Yashraal, of course, because we are their parents, they will have not seen such a mighty move of Alahayam like this. They would have heard of it because we would have recounted all the events that took place on the earth. The awesome events, not the evil, the awesome events of Alahaya. But now, for the first time, the generations that will be born to the regathered 12 tribes of Yashwa'al will see with their own eyes, hallelujah, this war and the destruction of our enemies. And that's why he said he will be known in the midst of his people. No, it's not just hearsay. No, they have proof, they have evidence. They have seen it with their own eyes. The might and the power of Allahayam Yahweh. I'm not saying that they will doubt that he is powerful, but up to this point of time, the earth was at peace for 1,000 years, so they have never seen a war. And this last war will seal it in their mind that he is Hashaddai. Parents will already know, and those that were resurrected to life, they would have already known the power and the might of Hashaddai. But these young ones that were born, through the 1,000 years, because they're going to be born immortal. They're never going to see death or know what sin is. And they're going to see with their own eyes the destruction of the wicked. So, of course, his name will be renowned amongst Yashwa'al and amongst the Gentiles, the righteous Gentiles. Why? Because he preserved them alive. Remember, he sent the fire amongst their lands, the north parts and the south parts, to weed out the wicked amongst them. The ones that were left behind to take care of the lands, the women, the old people, all of them, they're gone. He's not going to preserve them because they're wicked just like their sons and fathers that went out in the war. So he's coming to clean house. They were never worshippers of him. They paid him lip service. So now he's getting rid of all of them. So those are the ones he's going to destroy with fire wherever they're living. But the righteous ones, the 1/6 that are his worshippers, he will preserve them alive and they will see the fire left, right, and center. But it's not coming near them. And even if it does come near them, the fire does not burn them. Because Allah Hayam knows how and who to burn and destroy. His fire is meant for the wicked, not for the righteous. And they will see that and they will rejoice because of their salvation now, their preservation from destruction. Hallelujah. So let's read on. This war will be so tremendously fought by him that all the inhabitants on the earth, Yashra'al and the remnant of the Gentiles, will be in great awe. You see, it would not come as a surprise to the regathered ones, the elders. That's who they're going to be. Because they have been alive for such a long time. But the ones that were born for the 1,000 years, they're going to be in awe. We've seen it before. And yes, we will rejoice And yes, our hearts will be glad. And yes, we will celebrate. But it will come as no surprise to us. No, it will not. Because we will know of his might. We will know of his power. But to see it once again, to see it once again will cause our spirits to soar, and he will be glorified. Never again will his name be polluted by pagan worship, because all evil is completely vanquished and destroyed by Allah Hayam forever. So he is not saying that there was a potential for us to pollute his name, but what caused his name to be polluted in the first place, even today, is when we call on other gods and say we're worshiping him. All right? When we celebrate pagan festivals, we're polluting his name. And because now he has destroyed every grain of evil off the earth and even from the spiritual realm, there's no more pagan worship, no more pagan idols. They're gone forever. The unrighteous, the self-righteous, they're destroyed and they're gone forever. The only people left behind will be the righteous Gentiles. So, of course, his name will never, ever more be polluted. Ever anymore. Now, Allah Hayam is proclaiming his vengeance on this last Satan, and his army has come, which he will complete his destruction of them in one blow. This will be the day of his visitation, where he will remember all the evil that was done on the earth and to his people. And now, with his last stroke, he has completed all that he had said he would do through his prophets of old. So we're going to come back to this idea of the day whereof I have spoken. We're going to come back to that. Yasha'oya, the book of Isaiah, chapter 34, verse 5. For my sword shall be bathed, means it's saturated, be filled in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, who is Edom, and upon the people of my curse to judgment. Upon the people of my curse to judgment. Now remember earlier I stated that Allah Hayam has called other names to bring judgment against them in the end times. And we know that these names no longer really exist as they are, but the descendants of these people, they still exist. And we cannot look at the names of all these different ones, Meshach, Tubal, Gog, Magog, Idumea, who is Edom. We can't look at these names individually. What we need to do is look at the source of these names, the origins of these names. So, Idumea are the people of his curse that he's going to bring judgment to. Let's read on. The sword of Yahweh is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, and with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For Yahweh has a sacrifice in Bozrah, which is a town in Edom and Moab, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. For it is the day of Yahweh's vengeance, and the year of recompense, that means reward, for the controversy of Sayawan. So recompense, when Allah Hayam gives recompense to his enemies, is the destruction. But when he brings recompense upon the righteous, it is to reward them. All right? Allah Hayam set his judgment against Edom to be a day of vengeance. Edom, we know, are the offspring, or the Edomites, are the offspring of Oshah. Oshah is Esau, the brother of Yaakov, our forefather. Oshah's descendants were mixed with many different people over the many generations. It all started with Oshah, who had 3 wives, not many. He had 3 wives from 3 different nations. And so did his sons and their seed after them. And this is a perfect example of amalgamation. Now we're going to revisit this idea of amalgamation, and Oshah would have been a Shamite because he came from Rebekah and Yatsachak, that those were his parents, the same parents of Yaakov, our forefather. So we're going to revisit this later on. Right now we're looking at the day of Yahweh's vengeance and the year of recompense. All right? We're focusing on that right now. And then we're going to go back to looking at these other names. Yasha'oyah chapter 62 verse 2. To proclaim the acceptable, meaning delight, pleasure, favorable year of Yahweh, and the day of vengeance of Allah Hayanah, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Sayawan, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called the trees of righteousness, the planting of Yahweh, that he might be glorified. Now remember that time when Hamashiach was standing in a synagogue. He was given this scripture to read. And he read the first verse, then he sat down. And all the eyes were upon him. Then he got up again and said, today, this day, has this scripture been fulfilled before your eyes. Now, I'm paraphrasing. Meaning that he came to fulfill that first verse. Because the second and the third verses will be fulfilled in the end times, which would have been a few thousand years in the future. All right? So that's why he did not want to read on. He only read the portion where he fulfilled it. And we know that this is set in the future because we, Yashwa'al, let's focus on the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom, they're going to get their bit too. But we, the southern kingdom of Yashwa'al, we are a people who are mourning. We are mourning. It doesn't matter if we can smile and laugh and make a joke with a friend. Deep down inside, spiritually, we are a people who are mourning. Why? We don't have a land called by our own name. We're still captives in the land where we were. Many of us, not all of us, but many of us are still captives in the land where we were born, and came from the slaves. Our parents, our forefathers were slaves. So we're still dwelling in the land of our captivity, and we're still under slavery. The only way that we will not be in slavery any longer is when we are regathered by Allah Hayam. Once we're regathered, then the slavery has come to an end. As long as we're living in the system, we are in a kind of an exotic type of slavery. They don't call it that, but that's what it is. They tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and why. And if you don't, you either lose your job, you lose your home, you lose everything. And then what? So a lot of people, they submit to the commands and the demands so that they can continue living under the system. So we are in a state of mourning because, especially now, knowing that we were taken, well, we fled to Africa, we were taken from Africa, brought to the islands and other lands. Our identities were taken away from us, our language, our worship, everything was taken away from us until a generation grew up where they did not know who they were. This would have been by the second and third generation. All our history is gone. Well, it was taken away. And they tried to delete it. But they could not delete the Bible. And that's where the majority of our history is located. We have the apocryphal books. Some of our history is in there too, although you have to read that with Ruach HaKodesh. Just like you read the Bible with Ruach HaKodesh. So we are a people in mourning. Only those that have sold out, that have convinced themselves that they're happy. They have a good life. But this is their reward. But Allah Hayam, when He regathers us, He's going to transform the state that we're in. Even while we are here in the lands of our captivity and we're living in a state of mourning, He sent His comforter, Ruach HaKodesh, to comfort us. How does He comfort us? With His word. He reveals His promises, His parables, His prophecies to let us know a day is coming when I'm going to exchange all the hardships and the persecutions that you've been going through for my name's sake for great blessings. So He's comforting us with hope. And here in verse 3, to appoint unto them that mourn in Saiwan. Saiwan is not here yet. Saiwan is going to be the center of worship on Mount Saiwan. Mount Saiwan is going to be where His tabernacle is going to be established when Hamashiach comes again the second time. But in the meanwhile, He says, I will be to you like a small sanctuary. That's in the prophecies. Why? Because He understands that we are people of worship. And Saiwan here is representative of worship. And when He reveals Himself to us, He's revealing true worship that helps us that are mourning. We're mourning because we don't know which way to turn until He reveals it to us. We don't know who to worship. We just know that this Jesus and this Christ and this Lord and God doesn't feel right to us anymore. Even though the churches that we came up in tells us that He is our Savior, just doesn't feel right until He reveals it to us. And that's how He becomes a small sanctuary, when He reveals Himself to us through His Ruach. And we finally realize who He is. And we finally realize worship, how to worship Him. Because Ruach HaKodesh then will teach us how to worship him. And then he starts to exchange. He or the ashes. When you speak of ashes, it's speaking of sackcloth and ashes. Our forefathers, when you see them in sackcloth and ashes, is a type of mourning. Is again here. These two verses are talking about mourning. So sackcloth and ashes is when you're mourning for the dead, or mourning because you're going to be destroyed. All right. So instead of mourning, he's going to give us beauty. And look at the next verse, the oil of joy for what? For mourning again. This is the point that he's trying to make with us here. Verse 2 and 3. We are in a state of mourning. We have been in a state of mourning for generations because we were taken from our land. We've been taken from him. And the tabernacle has been taken away from us. The tabernacle is central to our life because he dwells in the tabernacle, and the tabernacle dwelt in our land, in our midst, and we, his people, live in the land with him. And that is covenant as well. The garment of praise for what? The spirit of heaviness. That's mourning again. What makes you heavy? When you're mourning, when you're sad, when you're crying. So all these mournings that he is telling us, that the reasons why and how he is going to replace our mourning in all different levels. What he is going to do when he regathers us. By the time he regathers us, everything will be rolled off of us. This mourning will be gone. We will have the oil of joy. We will have sayawan. We will have beauty. And we will have the garment of praise. And this is what will happen when he regathers us. That we might be called the trees of what? Righteousness. The planting of Yahweh, that he might be glorified. There's no time when it comes to Al-Hayam, where he dwells, and even at the very end of time. So this end time that we're looking at in chapter 20 of Revelation, there's no more time. Remember, the sun and moon and stars have been taken away. The earth now is in a perpetual day. The glory of Al-Hayam is shining upon the earth. He is the light on the earth. His son is the light on the earth. Therefore, when we hear about the acceptable year of Yahweh and the year of recompense of Yahweh, both are speaking of the same thing. The year spoken of by the prophet is referring to perpetuity, which is eternity. So he's using words that gives us an idea of time for our benefit today as we are reading the prophecies. But knowing by Ruach HaKodesh, who has spoken it to us, that time is no more. So when you look now through the lens of Ruach HaKodesh to understand the year of recompense, or the acceptable year of Yahweh, which will be at the end of the age, before the renewal of all things, it is not speaking of a literal year. It's speaking of eternity. And the way how he describes it, it is a time when eternity begins, and we will know that it begins because of the blessings, the favor, the goodness. And it will not begin while the perpetual day is still there. And the perpetual day, once again, there's no time, but it is a period, a moment a, that his vengeance will complete and fulfill the judgments that he has spoken through his prophets. All right? Okay, let me read on. It will be the moment when the 12 tribes and the righteous Gentiles will live in eternity with Allah. This will be our reward and our favor from Allah. That's why he calls it the year of recompense, meaning rewards, or the acceptable year of Yahweh. Both are the same thing. And it will come when evil is vanquished. It's the beginning of eternity with him. Although we are already with him. Yes, yes, I know. We are already in the land dwelling with him. But the Gentiles now will be joined to us. The righteous Gentiles will be joined to us. So know that it's completed. That's why he said it is done. All evil is destroyed. The only persons that are left are the righteous people. We're not getting to the white throne judgment yet. We're talking about the living ones. Let's read on. The day of vengeance points us to the perpetual day, which will also occur in the end time. So we talked about this perpetual day through many different studies. And we know that time comes to an end, and then we have this perpetual day where Allah is going to complete his judgments. Even after the seventh vial, there are still more judgments coming, because there are two wars that are coming. That's the war of Armageddon. That's a judgment set against those people. And then after 1,000 year reign and the Gentiles multiply again, he's going to have the final judgment, which will be the war of Gog and Magog. And all of this will occur throughout the perpetual day. Now, okay. You said 1,000 years. But don't forget there's no time. So perpetual days mean there's no ending to this day until Allah brings it to an end. And I already discussed and showed you that how we are going to be able to determine 1,000 years because of the Feast of Tabernacles that will be celebrated every year. Now, the 12 tribes, we are connected to Allah. So we're dwelling in his glory, so we automatically know and will know when this event is about to take place. We will know everything. It's almost like inherent now because we're connected to Allah. So he doesn't even need to tell us, oh, don't forget, children, tomorrow. There's no tomorrow, but we're going to be celebrating at this point. We're going to be celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles. We don't need that because it will be inherent in us now because we're dwelling in glory. Everything that we need to know, he will make it known to us on the inward parts. And it is through us that the Gentiles will know when it's time to celebrate his feast and his Shabbats. Yes, we still be celebrating Shabbat. We're the ones. That's why we become the priests and the ministers to the Gentiles. And every Feast of Tabernacles that is celebrated is counted. So when we get to the 1,000th Feast of Tabernacles, then we know that is the ending now of the 1,000 years. And Gadriel will be released, and now we're getting ready to see this last war occurring on the earth. That's how we'll know. All right? Okay, let's read on. Allah Hayam will exact his punishment upon all of the wicked Gentiles on that day, coming upon the earth. So the perpetual day is a day of punishment, a day of vengeance, a day of destruction. Although in between one war and the next war, there is a time of peace because Allah Hayam wants to replenish the earth. He wants the earth to be at peace for the 1,000 years because also that is another fulfillment of another prophecy, the 1,000-year reign. We discussed that in a previous study. Okay, let's read on. When Allah Hayam has completed his vengeance on the earth, let me see, yes. Then the perpetual day will come to its end because he brings it to an end. And then eternity, the year of recompense, will begin. Now, let me also say this. The year of recompense will begin after the white throne judgment. It will begin when we have the new heavens and the new earth and the new Yerushalayim. That will be the year of recompense, the acceptable year of Yahweh. All right? But that's not going to take very long. The white throne judgment I'm speaking of. Allah Hayam has appointed destruction for this day, but his year will be of his blessings. And that's why he calls it the acceptable, the year of favor of Allah Hayam. Because it's eternity with him, eternity living in blessings, in favor, in goodness, in prosperity, in love, everything that is good. That's what is going to happen in eternity. We are to see that at the renewal of the heavens and the earth and Yerushalayim, we will be living in eternity, the acceptable year of Yahweh. So let's look now at Yeshaya chapter 63, verse 4. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. So here again, he's speaking about the day of vengeance and the year of his redeemed. Who are his redeemed? His people that he's going to redeem off this earth. And I looked, and there was none to help, and I wondered that there was none to uphold. Therefore my own arm brought salvation unto me, and my fury, it upheld me. And I will tread down the people in my anger, and make them drunk in my fury, and I will bring down their strength to the earth. So that is his vengeance. All right. Again, this judgment was set against Edom. So this scripture in Yeshaya, which is Isaiah chapter 63, verse 4 to 6, is a judgment set against Edom. And this is for the end times. When you see the words day of vengeance and year of my redeemed, which is the year of recompense or the acceptable year of Yahweh, it's all the same thing. He's speaking about the end times. So if he is coming against Gog and Magog, how come now he's coming against Edom? Who is this Edom? Let's read on. Yet we know, let's read the beginning again. Again, this judgment was set against Edom. Yet we know that Allah Hayam uses name prophetically to give us an idea of the character of the owners of the names he is speaking about, and oftentimes it is also about their origins. Osha, also called Edom, was the evil twin brother of Yaakov, our forefather. As Edom is not on the earth today, however, the offspring of Edom are still here, as they have assimilated themselves in many nations on the earth. That's what Osha did. Osha was the firstborn of Yatsachah and Rebekah. But let me just say this. Yaakov was also the firstborn, because when Osha came out of the womb, Yaakov was holding on to his heel. And his arm came out when Osha came out. So technically, he is also the firstborn. And we know this to be true because there was another incident where there were twins being born. This was in our lineage. The first, the one that came out was an arm. An arm came out of the woman. And the I forgot the name of the person that that deals with childbirth. Anyway, the nurse. All right, the midwife. Yes, that's it. The midwife tied a string around the hand of the baby that pushed his hand out first. And the baby withdrew his hand. And when the baby was born, the baby that was born had no string on his hand. But the second baby that was born with the string on his hand. So he was called the firstborn, even though his brother came out before him. But technically, he came out first because his hand came out before his brother. So he became the firstborn. So Yaokam, even from the womb, he knew his destiny. And he grabbed hold of the heel of his brother, and he came out the same time. His hand was out the same time his brother was out. So technically, he is firstborn as well. But Osha was wicked even from the womb. That's why they were always wrestling in the womb of Rebecca. It was the good versus evil type of wrestling. And Osha, against his parents' advice, went and married women from nations that they forbid him to marry. And he went ahead and married them anyway. And he used to steal from them. He was a wicked son. Whereas Yaokab, although he was loved by his mother, he became loved by Yatsahat because Yatsahat recognized that Osha was wicked. And anyway, Abraham, he was the one who helped to raise Yaakov. So everything that Abraham knew, he passed on to Yaakov. And I know I'm going into a little bit of genealogy here, but I just want you to understand something. The promises came through Yaakov because he was the seed, he was the son chosen. You see, we have a lineage, and the lineage goes from father to son. And then that son grows up and be a father, and it passes on to his son. And although some of these fathers, they had other children, but the promise was not for them. It is only for the chosen seed until it got to Yaakov and he had his 12 sons. And now the promise has been extended to them and their children. So they became the progenitors of the 12 tribes of Yashraal. So now we have the promise that was made to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. He made a covenant with them. But there was a lineage that led up to Abraham. Okay, we're going to see some more about this in a little while. But Edom now, he married other women. He married women. He married women from other nations. And so he, even from the womb, he was wicked, and he went and married women that he was not supposed to marry. And of course he had children by them, and they were even more wicked than he was. And they were enemies of the 12 sons of Yaakov. They hated Yaakov and they hated his sons. And they tried to wipe them out. So you see what I'm saying here. Okay. The offspring of Edom are still here. Why? Because they are married. They have married and intermarried with other nations. And those nations are who? Japheth and Ham. All right. As they have assimilated themselves in many nations on the earth. So Edom itself, the name Edom, you will not find it on the earth, but the offspring of Oshah, who is Edom, is still here. And you will find them in the genealogy of the Europeans and the Asians and the Africans. But I thought Edom was of Shamite. Well, after marrying so many nations over the generations, they're no longer considered Shamites. They're now of Japheth and Ham. The only people that have preserved themselves are the offspring of Yaakob's 12 sons if they stayed within their lineage for 4 generations. I know some of our brethren today are married into other nations and they think it's okay. It is not okay. You're diluting yourself and you're destroying your heritage. And then they have children, mixed children, and those mixed children go and marry other people from other nations. So now they're all Gentiles anyway. You marry a Gentile, you have Gentile children, and your Gentile children marry other people from other nations. They're still Gentiles. So only if they marry back in to our lineage for 4 generations, then they consider back into the flock. That curse that is upon them is rolled off. Don't think that listen, you think you might marry a good man or a good woman because they have a good career and money and whatnot and come from a good family. But you've just married a curse. Because you've lost your heavenly inheritance because you did that. They're not coming in because you are of Yashraal. No! Allah already knows who of the Gentiles belong to him. You don't know who of the Gentiles belong to him. That is his business. And that's why they have to go through the judgments to keep sifting them. Right? It's purging them. So all these ones that go and marry other nations, you have lost your inheritance. Don't even consider your children. They're not going anywhere. They're Gentiles. You marry a Gentile, you have Gentile children. And you got some that are out there that are mixed that think that because one of their parents is from America or from the Caribbean, so therefore they must be of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. So now I must be the offspring of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. No, you're not. You're a Gentile until the 4th generation. So that means you will always be a Gentile. You will always be a Gentile, and Allah will treat you like a Gentile. And you'll find that these are the same ones that are out there teaching false doctrines, false prophecies. All right? But they're mixed. And anyone that is mixed, Allah has no dealings with them. Why do you think he told us in our laws and statutes and commandments that we shouldn't wear clothing that have mixed fibers? Because we are a holy people. And listen, I know, yes, you can go through the genealogy and see that Allah used people like Ruth and the grandmother of Dawad. Forgot her name for a minute here. The one that helped the spies. But Allah will select the Gentile who will be called by his name. We can't go out there and look for a husband or a wife and say, yes, I feel good about this person. This person, they treat me well. So therefore, yes, Allah Hayam is going to bring them in with us. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. He's the one who will choose who belong to him. If it is so for us, the 12 tribes, how much more would it be for the Gentiles? All right? So a lot of the offspring of our forefathers that are not of the lineage that has been chosen by Allah Hayam, they're all Gentiles. Even though they were of the same father and mother, they would have married into other nations, making them Gentiles. And because they are not chosen, even though they are of Shamite, of Sham, they're Gentiles because they're not chosen. All right? They're not chosen. They're not of the chosen seed, is the point that I'm making. If you're not of the chosen seed, it doesn't matter if you're of the Shamitic line. You're not of the chosen seed, and you are a Gentile. Okay, let's move on. Yes, so we're talking about Gentiles. It is for this reason that we cannot assume that someone is Yashraal because they look like a Negro. That's another thing that we need to stop doing. Every dark-skinned person we call a Negro. The Aborigine people of Australia, you call them a Negro. Yes, they got some people that are dark-skinned in India. We call them Negroes. What is wrong with our people? They haven't even gone through anything that we, as the true Negroes, have gone through. And yet you want to give them a piece of our inheritance. All right? Just because they're dark skinned does not make them Negroes, does not make them Yashraal. They're either Edomites, Canaanites, or Edomites. All right? Because the Edomites, they look like us. And they're Africans now, and Europeans, and Asians. Edom of itself does not exist, but the genetics will be found in the Europeans and Africans today. We know that one of the sons, or grandson, rather, I think his name is Elipha. He was like a king over Kittim, which will be the Italians. So he will have wives there. And there were some that were alliance to Africans. So they're going to have wives there. So you see, Edom, they're spread all over. They're Europeans, Asians, and Africans. Osha was a descendant of Sham, but because his lineage is so diluted by so many foreigners, he's no longer of Sham, but of Ham and Japheth. And he was rejected anyway. He was rejected from the womb. It says in the scriptures that Allah Hayam said that he loved Yaakov, but Esau he hated. And he said in another, I think this is in the Apocrypha, that Edom is the ending and Yaakov, or rather, yes, is the beginning. All right. Therefore, the coming perpetual day of judgment is set against Edom, rightfully so, will be because Edom is a synonym for Magog. So remember, Magog is an amalgamated bunch of people. They're all mixed, so they can't be mixed anymore. They all look alike. So is Edom. If Edom is Japheth and Ham, so obviously Edom will be a synonym for Magog. And that's why this is another judgment set against Magog. and he called it Edom. We have to remember this is all about prophecies set in the future, a future closer to us than the prophets of old who spoke them. So when the prophet spoke them, yes, there would have been Edomites around and descendants of Magog, because Magog was also a son of Japheth, the name of the son of Japheth. All right? So they would be more familiar with those names than we are today. But because there have been thousands of years since that prophecy has been spoken, what we see today is what they could not see in their time. And what we are led to see are the two sons of Noah, who are the progenitors, or who were the progenitors of these nations. Can't look at the nations. We have to look at the source, the origins. All right? Jeremiah chapter 46, verse 8. Matzarayam rises up like a flood. You see, now he's talking about Matzarayam. Matzarayam is Egypt. Now, are you saying that in the end times, Matzarayam is going to be a problem for us? Is going to be, is there judgment set upon Matzarayam in the end times? Let's read on. Matzarayam rises up like a flood, and his waters are moved like the rivers. And he said, I will go up and will cover the earth. I will destroy the city and the inhabitants thereof. Now, doesn't it sound familiar? This again is the end times. Come up, you horses, and rage, you chariots, and let the mighty men come forth, the Ethiopians and the Libyans that handle the shield, and the Lydians. And the Lydians were descendants of Lud, who is the offspring of Sham. All right. That handled and bent the bow, meaning they used bow and arrow. Verse 10. For this is the day Yahweh Alahayam ol Sabaoth, meaning Yahweh Alahayam of hosts, a day of vengeance, that he might avenge him of his adversaries, his enemies. And the sword shall devour, and it shall be satiate and made drunk with their blood. For Yahweh Alahayam ol Sabaoth have a sacrifice in the north country by the river Euphrates. And as long as we see the day of Yahweh, a day of vengeance, all right, we're talking about that perpetual day where he is going to rain destruction upon the heads of his enemies. And here we see him mentioning Matzarayam. Matzarayam, if you look at the origin of Matzarayam, who is Egypt, you will see that that is a descendant of Ham. So are the Ethiopians and the Libyans. They're all descendants of Ham. However, we see the Lydians, who are the descendants of Lud and offspring of Sham, we see them coming against us as well. Well, yes, they were originally descendants of Sham, but they're not of Sham anymore. They are Gentiles. They are Gentiles. Like I said, if you're not of the lineage, the chosen lineage, you will be Gentile. And a lot of these people, like Edom, like Osha, they will marry into other nations, which will totally confirm that they are Gentiles anyway. And even though originally Lud was the offspring of Sham, does not mean that the Lydians, after however many years, generations of mixing with other nations, will not necessarily be Shamite anyway. They're all Gentiles. We have to realize if it's not of the chosen seed, the chosen lineage, the one is like a string that runs through from Adam through Sarwath, and I'm going to skip some names, Hanawak, until you get to Abraham, because I know there's some in between there, like Noah, yes, Sham, Abraham, then Yatsahak and Yaokab. And then you have the 12 sons. We know who the 12 sons are. That is the string, that is the chosen lineage to bring about the people, the chosen people of Alahayam, who we know today as Yashra'al. Anyone else, they're Gentiles. Doesn't matter if they came from the same they're Gentiles. They're not chosen. Abraham had 8 sons, but only one was chosen, and that was Yatsachak. Yatsachak had 2 sons, only one was chosen, and that was Yaokab. All right? Okay, let's read on. And the sword shall devour. Sorry, I read that already. My mistake. Alahayam sent his judgment, the destruction of Gog and Magog, through his prophets in the form of prophecies, so that we today can see and understand that he is Hashaddai, and only he can do such a thing. Only he can call forth the future prophesied in the past. For in the past, his future events were declared. It's only Alahayam can declare the ending from the beginning. Only he can do it. This is his omniscience and also his omnipotent power at work together. So let's look at verse 9 and 10 of Yahad chapter 39. And they that dwell in the cities of Yashraal shall go forth and shall set on fire and burn the weapons, both the shields and the bucklers and the bows and the arrows and the handstaves and the spears, and they shall burn them with fire 7 years. That's a long time to be burning wood. So that they shall take no wood out of the field, neither cut down any out of the forest. For they shall burn the weapons with fire, and they shall spoil those that spoil them, and rob those that rob them, said Yahweh Alahayam. So here we have them burning the bucklers, the bows, and the arrows, and the shields. So a buckler is a small shield that is used for hand-to-hand combat, whereas the shield is bigger and protects you from the from the arrows and spears. All right, and whatever, if they want to club you or something, you have the shield that does that protects you. All right. So Alahayam is going to cause us to spoil them and rob them. Now, the only people that will be dwelling in the cities of Yashraal will be the 12 tribes of Yashraal. So the cities of Yashraal is speaking of those who are living in the city called Yarowashalam. In the city of Yarowashalam will be the cities of Yashraal. And those will be the 12 tribes. Yes, we will be having our forefathers who were resurrected to life. They're going to be dwelling in the tabernacle. That's going to be their place, because they're going to be there serving him day and night. All right? But we had cities because we were multiplying. All right? We needed homes so we can have our children and so on and so forth. Okay? So they'll be living in their cities in Yarowashalam. It will be the selected ones from the 12 tribes who will be assigned to burn the weapons and also provide the rest of the tribes with wood. And this will last 7 years. So it's 7 years of wood. And that's how we rob them. They're not coming out. It doesn't say that they're coming out with great wealth like the war of Armageddon. But what he's showing us here is that, yeah, we're gonna be enjoying their wood. We're gonna be enjoying their weapons as our wood for burning, for making fires, you know. destroy their weapons with fire, just like they are going to be destroyed by the fire of Alahayam. Okay, let's read on. In the war of Armageddon, Alahayam caused that army to come into our land, carrying their silver and their gold and an abundance of clothing. After they were destroyed, we spoiled them, taking their silver, gold, and goodly apparel. Now we will be doing the same thing again, but taking only their wooden weapons to use as fire. So we're not even taking their goats, their sheep, and everything that they came with, the cattle that they're coming with, that they will be coming with. We're going to, the animals, the beasts of the field and the carrion birds are all going to eat them. We don't want their cattle. We don't want their herds or their flocks. Right? Whether they're going to come with substance, it doesn't say in the scripture here, but we know it happened in the war of Armageddon, that we spoiled them. All right? And if they do come out, well, yeah, then it's for us. But as it is right now, what will be taken will be the wood, the weapons, and using it as firewood. Okay? Now we'll be doing the same thing again, but taking only their wooden weapons to use as firewood. We will have no need of any more silver or gold at this point of time. We're already wealthy anyway. How much silver and how much gold can we have? We're already loaded. That's the reason why they're coming into our land to try to destroy us, so that they can take away what we have, what we will have. We will have a great abundance of wealth, hence the reason why these multitudes led by Gadriel will try to destroy us. Okay, let's look at Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 14, verse 13. And it shall come to pass in that day that a great tumult from Yahweh shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Yahweh shall also fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance. So we spoiled those ones that were in Armageddon. So this Zechariah chapter 14, we looked at this in a previous study, and that had to do with the war of Armageddon. So we're already loaded. Yashraal have been robbed for generations through the many slaveries and sieges. And this is speaking specifically of the southern kingdom. Yet what occurred against us, the southern kingdom, will still mean that all 12 tribes will receive an equal recompense, as we are now one kingdom. So, yes, we went through a lot, but the northern kingdom, yes, they will go through their time of torments, well, persecutions rather. And even though theirs is short-lived, it's more intense. All right? But the recompense will be for all. We will all receive equal recompense. The nations that robbed us throughout our generations descended from the two sons of Noah, who are Ham and Japheth. Now Alahayam will complete our retribution by giving us plenty of firewood from them, which will come from their weapons. Their destruction will be the lake of fire, and their weapons will also be destroyed by fire. What a fitting end for these creatures. And here's another thing. When we talk about retribution and recompense, I know a lot of our people, they love to use this word reparations. I know a lot of our people are seeking after reparations today, because our people are obsessed with mammon, just like our forefathers that were in the wilderness. They built a golden calf, and they called it their gods that delivered them from Matzorayim. That golden calf is called mammon. Then they built that calf again when they were in the land of Yashraal. In fact, they built two. One in the land of Dan and the other in the land of, I forgot the other place where they set up another golden calf. All right? Our people are obsessed with mammon. They are obsessed with wealth, with things, with substance. And they place the love of substance before Allahayam. And that's why they are in pursuit of reparations. They want to go and march in front of the government buildings, raising their flags and their posters and putting their signatures on paper, demanding reparations for all the years of slavery. These are the wicked ones. Do not join with them to do this. When Allahayam is ready, he already knows what is owed to us. Remember what happened to our forefathers in Goshen? When it was time for them to leave on the first Exodus, they did not go to the Egyptians, knock on their doors, and didn't even have to say a word. The Egyptians already had their wealth stacked up by the door, ready to give to them. When they left Goshen, they were loaded. And they didn't have to beg for anything. They didn't have to ask either. They just knocked on the door. The door opened and there was their wealth. But our people, they want to go and march for the money that they think is owed to them. Knowing that we're living in the time when money will be no more. Everything is going to become ones and zeros. What are you going to do when they say, okay, yeah, I'm going to give you $1 million. And then tomorrow they close the banks and say the only way that you can get money out of the bank is by selling your soul. What are you going to do? You work hard to get that reparation. I can see a lot of our people selling their souls to hold on to that money. And when I say selling their souls, I mean taking the poison. Because they're coming out with all ways for you to have to take that stuff again. Don't think it's over. Don't let what's going on in the world distract you for what's coming. The mark of the beast is coming. And they will use anything and everything to draw you into their vacuum of wickedness. All right, let's look at verse 11 of Yahazakaal, chapter 39. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will give unto Gog a place there of graves in Yashraal, the valley of the passengers on the east of the sea. And it shall stop the noses of the passengers. And there shall they bury Gog and all his multitudes. And they shall call it the valley of Hamongog. So Gog and all his multitude will be Magog. And of course the leaders will be Gog. All right. And notice that Allahayam now, he's calling those that are remaining passengers. Remember I told you how the earth is going to be. You have Yashraal in the middle, and on both sides of Yashraal you're going to have lands where the Gentiles are going to live. And they'll be able to pass through Yashraal. And it's called the Valley of Passengers. It's a place, it's like a highway in which passers-by of the Gentiles can pass through our land to get to the other side or to get to wherever they need to go. So Allahayam is going to convert that area into a grave site. And he's going to call it the Valley of Hamongog. All right? Allahayam will destroy Gog, the leaders of Gadriel's army, and also Magog, whose bones will be buried after they're picked clean by the carrion birds and beasts of the field. There will be so many bones that it will take a while to find them all and bury them. For this reason, Allahayam will employ those of the 12 tribes to periodically bury these bones as they are encountered by those who will pass through our land. Alahayam will designate a place to bury Gog and Magog east of the sea, which will be called at the first the Valley of Passengers, but after the war he will rename it the Valley of Hamon-Gog, which means the multitude of Gog, which is Magog, by the way. It will be a burial site that will carry with it the stench of death, not of rotten flesh or rotten blood, but just the stench of death. It's a reminder, okay? Just serving as a reminder. That stench is going to be localized. It's not going to be spreading throughout the land. It's localized in the valley of Hamon-Gog. And until that last bone is buried, then Alahayam is just going to completely remove and change that area. We're going to see that in the next little while. Because the earth needs to be cleansed. And the only way to cleanse it from all the destruction that it has seen over the thousands of years of wars and what have you is to destroy the destroyers. And when the bones are buried in the earth, when the last bone is buried, Alahayam is going, it's almost like flushing something down the toilet. Then it just completely changed. The area is going to completely change. And that stench is going to be lifted. All right? The stench is only there to remind those, especially those that are passing through, and those that come to bury the bones there, which would be our people, of the war that took place. And the war took place on our behalf. Because these are the bones of our enemies that we're burying. All right? So the earth is going to literally absorb the bones and there will be no more. It's not that you can come back the next day and find the bones. The bones are gone. From the time you put it in the earth, they're gone, disappeared. All right? This is how Alahayam is going to completely destroy our enemies. All right? Verse 12 of Yahazakaal chapter 39. Sorry, I didn't finish reading. And I didn't finish reading the last sentence. Sorry. Yet it will be in our land, but nowhere near our city. So yes, the burial site will be in our land, but it's not going to be near our city, and the stench is going to be localized, so it's not coming our way. It's going to stay one place right there in the valley of Hamon-Gog. So let's look now at verse 12 of Yahazakaal chapter 39. And 7 months shall Habanai old Yashraal be burying of them, that they may cleanse the land. So you see, Alahayam is cleansing the land. Before he renews it, he has to clean it. Verse 13. Yea, all the people of the land shall bury them, and it shall be to them a renown the day that I will be glorified, said Alahayam Yahweh. So the buriers are selected. They will go on a rotation basis. They will be burying, but it will be an honor and a privilege to bury these bones. All right? An honor and a privilege. Verse 14. And they shall sever out men of continual employment, passing through the land to bury with the passengers those that remain upon the face of the earth to cleanse it. After the end of 7 months shall they search. So even with the passengers, these are the Gentiles, by the way, the righteous Gentiles. Alahayam now is calling them passengers. And yes, these passengers or passers by these righteous Gentiles that pass through the land, when they find a bone, they will put a mark next to it. All right. Verse 15. And the passengers that pass through the land When any sees a man's bone, then shall he set up a sign by it till the buriers have buried it in the valley of Hamongog. And also the name of the city shall be Hasmonah, meaning multitudes. Thus shall they cleanse the land. All right? So there's going to be a city even within the valley of Hamongog, because that's what Allah Hayam is going to do after the last bone is buried. It's now going to be converted once again, because this area is going to be an area of renown, a memorial site that we will forever remember, that this will be the place, this was the place where our enemies, the bones of our enemies, the last war, were buried. All right? And this is how the land is going to be cleansed, getting ready to be renewed. Can we imagine what it will be like to bury the bones of our enemies? What it will mean to us to see their destruction first, then being eaten by carrion birds and beasts? Allah Hayam will give this to us, the regathered ones, to take turns to be the buriers. This will be both an honor and a privilege, as with great joy we will bury the bones of our enemies, while at the same time glorifying Allah Hayam. While at the same time we'll be glorifying Allah Hayam. We will be burning their weapons for 7 years and burying their bones for 7 months. Again, he's given us a time frame, even though there's no more time. But he wants us to see the extent to which this army that is coming against us, how great and massive this army will be. Because it will take us 7 years to burn the wood, the weapons that they carried, and 7 months to bury their bones. All right? This is curious because there will be no more time. Yet Allah Hayam has spoken a time frame through his prophet. It is for our benefit today that he had used time to show the extent to which it will take to burn those weapons and to bury their bones. I know I'm repeating myself, right? We will not be experiencing time of any sort, as this is the end of time, literally and prophetically. Therefore, the completion of the destruction of all evil. Even the Gentiles are renamed passengers for now and not heathens, or they're not called Gentiles, because these will be the righteous remnant of the Gentiles that will be true worshippers of Allah Hayam. 2 significant things will occur just before the renewal of the heavens, the earth, and our city, Yerushalayim. Allah Hayam will establish a burial site near the coast of the sea, eastward, that will be called the Valley of Passengers, or the passers-by, but renamed to be Hamongog, the multitude of Gog. This area that was once a passage for the Gentiles will become a city for them called Hasmonah, which means multitudes. So he has rolled back the curse once the last bone is buried. The stench is gone. The earth is is cleansed. And so now he will establish a city there for the Gentiles. Allah Hayam will now, during the process of cleaning his land, will relocate some of his righteous Gentiles to live in this city. This will be one of many cities for them located just outside of Yerushalayim, the great city. This city, called Hasmonah, will always be a memorial for the 12 tribes and for the righteous Gentiles. Therefore, it will be a privilege for the Gentiles chosen to live there. Now the entire earth will be free of all evil. So let's look now at verse 17 of Yahazakaal chapter 39. And you, son of man, thus said Yahweh Allah Hayam, speak unto every feathered fowl, and to every beast of the field, assemble yourselves and come, gather yourselves on every side to my sacrifice, that I do sacrifice upon the mountains of Yashraal, that you may eat flesh and drink blood. One thing that we need to be careful of when studying the scriptures is to be well aware of the sequence of events. Although Allah Hayam had already spoken about the destruction of his enemies, we see that he has revisited their destruction with these verses. So we have already read how they're being buried. The bones are being buried. Now he's going back to the destruction and how they're going to be eaten. All right, we got to be careful and re- not get confused about the sequence of events. He's just going back now to clarify some points. All right. Although Allah Hayam had already spoken about the destruction of his enemies, we see that he has revisited their destruction with these verses. In the previous uh, verse, we see Yashwa'al will be burning their weapons and burying their burnt. Sorry, let me repeat that. In the previous verse, we see Yashwa'al will be burning their weapons and burying their bones. Now we see a backtrack to why there will be bones and not bodies to bury. This is the way of prophecy at times. Allah Hayam will go ahead, then to return to address in detail an event to give further clarification. Now we're seeing why there will only be bones, no rotten flesh or blood to pollute his land. He doesn't want us to be burying rotten bodies. Nah, let the animals eat them. But there's a reason for that. We're going to see that in a minute. Verse 18 of Yahazakal chapter 39. You shall eat the flesh of the mighty and drink the blood of princes of the earth, meaning the leaders of the earth, that is Gog, of rams, of lambs, and of goats, of bullocks, all of them fatlings of Bashan, meaning fruitful. And you shall eat fat till you be full, and drink blood till you be drunken. Of my sacrifice which I have sacrificed for you. Thus shall you be filled at my table with horses and chariots, with mighty men, and with all men of war, said Yahweh Allah Hayam. Like before in the war of Armageddon, these ones will also bring their herds and cattle for food and with the intention of settling in our land. That's why they're bringing them. They're bringing their flocks and their herds and cattle and what have you, because their hope is to destroy us, and some will remain in the land while others go back home and fetch their families and whatnot. This is the mindset of people. This is how it's been throughout the ages. All right? When people go and conquer another person's land, they don't leave the land. They leave some of the people behind to settle in the land. This is not a stretch of imagination. This is reality. It has been happening for generations, okay? But Allah Hayam will cause all the carrion birds and the beasts of the field to gather together for a feast, to eat the flesh of these mighty men. The leaders he called princes, who we know as Gog, and all their animals. Allah Hayam called it a sacrifice. But as it was him that brought about the destruction of this mighty army, shedding their blood, therefore he called it his sacrifice. He's the one who brought them there. He's the one who killed them. So now he's saying, you are my sacrifice for the birds and for the beast. That he will make for the birds and the beasts, of course. The carrion birds and the beasts of the field will be filled by the time they finish eating their flesh and drinking their blood. There will be many of these creatures, for there will be many fallen men. Chariots are speaking of the horses that pull the chariots and the charioteers that will be eaten. So the men that will drive the chariots, they're called charioteers, and the horses that will pull the chariots, they too will be eaten. Not the actual chariot. The actual chariot is whatever it's made of, cannot be eaten by the birds and the beasts. All right. One thing that we need to address is why this method of destruction. that Allah Hayam had chosen for these armies. Yes, these two armies, those who will be in the valley of decision, Armageddon, and those that will be in the mountains of Yashraal in the war of Gog and Magog. So when I say destruction, they're already destroyed, but now they're being eaten by the beast of the field and the carrion birds. Why did Allah Hayam choose to do that with the army of Armageddon that fought in Armageddon and the war of Gog and Magog? The wicked inhabitants of the earth, the forefathers of Magog, even if you want to call it Idumea or Edom, it doesn't matter. The offspring of Japheth and Ham, all right, had done the same things to our fathers, our forefathers. So let us discover this in the book of Psalms. So let's look at Psalm 79, verse 1. It's a psalm of Asaph. O Allahayam, the heathen are come into your inheritance. Your holy temple have they defiled. They have laid Jerusalem in heaps. The dead bodies of your servants have they given to be meat unto the fowls of the heavens, the flesh of your saints unto the beasts of the earth. So they did the same thing to our forefathers. Verse 3, their blood have they shed like water round about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them. So they left our forefathers' bodies lying on the ground to be devoured by beasts and carrion birds. Verse 4, we are become a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and derision to them that are round about us. And this is the reason why Allah Hayam is doing this to them. First, he doesn't want them to rot up and stink up the land, because that's defiling the land. And most importantly, is payback for what they've done to our righteous forefathers. This has been our lot, even when our forefathers were slaves and hung up in trees, killed and then eaten by birds and beasts. Yes, they even did it then. They even did it when they kept us as slaves. String up our men on trees, throw our babies to alligators as bait. Allah Hayam will not forget all the evil that has been done against us. Okay, let's look at the last verse in this particular chapter, because we're only looking at the war of Gog and Magog. We're not going beyond that. So let's read these last two verses of Yahazakaal chapter 39. And I will set my glory among the heathen, and all the heathen shall see my judgment that I have executed, and my hand that I have laid upon them. So Habanai ol Yashraal shall know that I am Yahweh their Allahayam from that day and forward. All right. So all the ones that were born, never seeing a war or any destruction, there is going to help seal in their minds too that he is Allahayam, Yahweh, our Allahayam, Allahayana. Allahayam will be glorified by all his people, both Yashraal and the righteous Gentiles. They will see his judgments, even from afar, and will declare his majesty. Habanai ol Yashraal will know once and for all that all of the judgments that Allahayam had wrought on the earth was on their behalf. His vengeance will be for us, and his punishments will be double that of what they did to us. This will become a sober realization, and at the same time, a time of celebration for us. So we will be passing on all the stories of the events that had taken place on the earth to all of our descendants, because we're not going to die. So we are there as witnesses of the power of Al-Hayam. Well, Hamashiach is there with us. But these ones that will be born on the earth After we're regathered, they have not seen any evil before their eyes except this time. And they're going to see Allah Hayam moving in a totally different way compared to how he would be moving when we are worshiping him for 1,000 years. So no wonder he is going to be glorified before them and us too. Okay, let's read on. All evil is destroyed, and now we can truly begin to live as Allah Hayam wants us and his creation to live and to be. So let's look at Psalm 34, verse 21. Evil shall slay the wicked, and they that hate the righteous shall be desolate. And it's for this reason why we do not repay evil with evil. Evil will always slay the wicked. And when we act wickedly in order to revenge or take revenge, it's going to backfire on us. But if we maintain our righteousness before Allah Hayam, he will avenge us. Okay? Let's look at verse 22 of the same Psalm 34. Yahweh redeems the soul of his servants, and none of them that trust in him shall be desolate. Desolation will be for the wicked, not for those that trust in him. Yahazakaal chapter 28, verse 25. Thus said Yahweh Allah Hayam, when I shall have gathered the house of Yashrael from the people among whom they are scattered, and shall be sanctified in them in the sight of the heathen. Then shall they dwell in their land that I have given to my servant Jacob. And they shall dwell safely therein, and shall build houses and plant vineyards. Yea, they shall dwell with confidence, when I have executed judgments upon all those that despise them round about them. And they shall know that I am Yahweh their Allah Hayam. So we are living at a time, and we have always been living in a time where we have always been persecuted. Why? Because of the color of our skin. All right? The texture of our hair. They just look at us and they call us all kinds of evil names, wicked names. But that is the enemy speaking through them against us. And yes, they allow themselves to be willing vessels because they're the ones that open their mouth and curse us. And that's why the Gentiles will have to go through every single judgment before they can receive a portion of our inheritance. This is the reason why. Because they love to say, I love you with their lips, but in their hearts, they could stab you in the back if they could. And they would. There's hatred in their hearts. All right. Yahazakaal chapter 34, verse 28. And they shall no more be a prey to the heathen, neither shall the beast of the land devour them. But they shall dwell safely, and none shall make them afraid. When we return to our land, no one will make us afraid. No one will be able to oust us out of our land ever again. Verse 29. And I will raise up for them a plant of renown. See, he's gone back to a plant of righteousness, a plant of renown. And they shall be no more consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the heathen anymore. Thus shall they know that I, Yahweh, their Allah Hayam, am with them, and that they, even the house of Yashrael, are my people, said Yahweh Allah Hayam. And you, my flock, the flock of my pasture, are men, and I am your Allah Hayam, said Yahweh Allah Hayam. And that is covenant. He's speaking of covenant. He only has a covenant with one people, the people that are going to be called by his name. starting with Yashua and then the righteous Gentiles that will come in with us. No one else. No rebels. Okay? And we have been bearing the shame of the heathen even up to this day. Up to this day. I hear some of the comments of some people, and part of me want to respond. This is when I go to different channels and I read some of the comments and the filthy things that they say about our people. All right? And part of me want to respond, but then the Spirit said to me, why are you responding to evil? These people have always been evil and they will continue to be evil because they descended from the same people that hated us. So what else do you expect? Can you expect love from hatred? They're the people of mastema, hatred. You can't expect love from hatred. It's the opposite. Love is the opposite of hate. Al-Hayam is love. But the Satans, the fallen angels, the unclean spirits, they're hatred, they're mastema. All right? And we cannot, and I know many of our people, they want to humble themselves before these people, thinking that they could be friends with them. They don't want your friendship. When the time is right, Allah will call out who belongs to him. In the time being, we need to make sure that we walk the straight and narrow path and not be derailed. Okay. Allah has promised that he will restore us from the many years of enslavement and even destruction, from being the byword and the hissing of the Gentiles, the persecutions and the wars. On this perpetual day, will all these promises be fulfilled? Where he will destroy evil. Evil will be destroyed on the perpetual day. But when we enter into eternity, it will be the year of recompense. It will be the favorable year of Yahweh, the acceptable year of Yahweh. We will know that as he had made us these promises of restoration and to dwell safely in our land, that he had also kept his promises to the very end. So he made promises of restoration, and he made promises that we will dwell safely in our land. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. And he will keep his promises to the very end. His word will not return to him void. If he speaks it, it will come to pass. No wonder why we will eternally celebrate, and our hearts will be glad forevermore. Our hearts will be glad because we have seen the fulfillment of all his promises, and he has delivered us and brought us safely to him. The southern kingdom will be dwelling in the heavens, in third heaven, until we come back to the earth to join with the northern kingdom to become one kingdom in our land. And we'll be coming with Hamashiach. And once the northern kingdom makes it into our land, no one will make them afraid. No one will be able to get them out of the land. No one. All right? So that's the ending of this particular study, part 7. And now we're going to complete it with the blessing for Yashua, taken from Debarayam, chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. Yabarakak Yahweh wa Yashamarak. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh panayo alayak wa yachanak. May Yahweh lift up his face upon you and have favor upon you. Yasha'a Yahweh panayo alayak wa yasham lak shalawam. May Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And now I'm going to read the commandment to you. And that commandment that you must recite when you rise up, when you lie down, or when you lie down, then you rise up, when you go out, and when you come in. And it's taken from Debarayam chapter 6, verse 4 and 5, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 and 5. Shama o Yashwa'al, Yahweh Allah Hayana Yahweh Achad, wa Ahabath Ath, Yahweh Allah Hayak, Bakal Babak, Wabakal Napashat, Wabakal Ma'adak. Hear all Yashwa'al, Yahweh our Allah Hayam is one Yahweh, and you shall love Yahweh your Allah Hayam with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And with that, I will say, Shalom, Shalom. All praises to the Most High, Abba Yah.